Oh yeah.
Man, getting caught inside, something I think so many beginners struggle with mentally.
Hell yeah, no better place to break it down than right here at the beach. We got some real swell on tap today, so we're getting to see a bunch of people get fully caught inside. Long boarders, short boarders, goat boaters, stand-uppers, foilers, everybody's getting caught inside today. I love it.
Yeah, right, and it's inevitable. It's gonna happen. Like, you want to play this game, you got to pay the price.
Go ahead.
Going in and out of the lineup, catching waves, paddling back out. You're just like, you got to cross the danger zone every time.
Every single time. And yeah, you're just gonna, we're gonna just bounce all over the place. But just like you just have to mentally prepare yourself for that battle. That's what makes surfing really difficult and keeps so many people from actually being able to go do it, is the paddle out and that fear of getting caught in the very worst spot. And everybody's level of comfort is different, so some people getting caught inside on a 3-foot day, they're really thinking like they're gonna die, like they're done, like they're gonna get hurt. They're gonna get hurt if a 3-foot wave lands right on top of them. And you can get hurt, but for the most part,
right, especially when you have the right techniques. That's like mentality and physicality go hand in hand, I feel like,
definitely.
Like, being confident in your skills and what it takes to get through waves really helps you to develop your mentality, so that when that set's coming and you're in the impact zone, rather than panicking, you're like, all right, I'm going to be doing my turtles one after the other, as many as it takes, or my duck dive, or my whatever it is that you do, just as long as it's not letting go of the board, of course.
Right. Just take it on as a challenge, see if you can do a little bit better than you usually do. See if you can last a little bit longer. See if you can, see if your 10th duck dive or turtle can be as good as your first one, and
right.
Not get gassed out.
That's such a great point. That reminds me of being like a wrestler, and my coach used to say, like, when you're tired, that's the most important time to have good technique. Of course you can have good technique when you're all fresh and on your first duck dive, but how good is your technique when you're getting tired? It's your 10th one and you still got to duck it. Man, that's such a great point, because also, like, we got to talk about how you deal with the inside, and one of the ways is, in most situations, to be constantly on the offensive. I think that there are times where it's better to sit it out and wait, like if you're way on the inside, like right in here where it's barely a wave. But when you're in the midst of it and it's only 2 to 3 foot, you totally got it. You got to be on the offensive before you find yourself all the way pushed back on the inside, and then in the end you have more work to do anyway.
You got to charge it.
Yeah.
You're almost always better off meeting a big whitewater with forward momentum. You just really are. If you're gonna duck dive it, you need forward momentum. If you're gonna do a press through and just do a big press up and slam through the whitewater and let it roll underneath you, you gotta have forward momentum. And I think that's what happens to a lot of people. Like, they freeze instead of act, and move and dig in and keep paddling. When there's that moment of hesitation, and it can really screw you up in the end.
It's so true. And you know what? That really reminds me of a great story. I remember one of my first year at La Mission, when it was like borderline my comfort zone and where I shouldn't be out. It was big, and it was like you had to do perfect duck dives. But I remember like not being used to those size of waves, and not being used to the timing of those waves and how long they build and build and build and build and build. And there were times where I'd see them coming in and be like, oh, should I charge this thing, or should I turn around, or just sit right here? Like, what should I do? And I remember saying that to Brother Chase, and he was like, oh, always charge. Always charge. Just paddle. I was like, and he was so right, because so many times you don't estimate it right, and you think the thing's gonna break a lot sooner than it does.
Yeah.
And I got caught so many times because I just hesitated, or I didn't act. And things got so much better for me when it stopped freezing on that like tedious line of 2 inside, 2 outside, and just started charging. And then I started slipping under waves before they actually broke. but it felt like while I was paddling it at it, like, oh my God, it's gonna break. It's
right
gonna break
on my
for
head.
sure.
Yeah. So yeah, those are really good points, and oh, look at this. Oh my gosh.
Wow, look at this set.
Sorry, peeps. This is just too beautiful. Gotta take it in.
Oh, okay. So you know what's another good thing that
Whoa.
is like rarely. Wow, you see him thread that needle?
Yeah.
You know one thing that's rarely talked about in surfing, or I'm sure people do, but it's just your breath. Oh, look at this person going backwards.
Whoa.
One thing rarely talked about is breathing, you know, and like really doing proper breaths, not panic breaths, like, but like controlling your mentality with your breath. And we talk about that a lot because, and for this topic, it's just so poignant. It's got to be learned. It's got to be controlled to the point where it starts becoming habitual, where it's like what you do when you feel yourself starting to go into like that panic mode.
Right. It needs to trigger you. You know, that's your trigger. As soon as you feel yourself taking short breaths, that's when you like slap your side upside the face and say like, dude, you gotta quit this stuff.
Pull it
like
together, man.
It's not that big out here for one. You know, I always like to think about how many other surfers, like big wave surfers, how many times they've been in much worse situations, kept their cool and just survived it just fine.
And you always hear them say it too, like the biggest tip, the biggest advice, the biggest thing they remind themselves and whoever's interviewing them is you gotta stay calm. And your breathing is such a foundational element of staying calm.
Again,
controlled
like,
breathing.
You know, that's your technique. That's making sure your technique gets better when it really needs to. You know, when you start huffing and puffing really hard and you feel your arms like start getting that like lactic acid feeling or whatever that is, you know, and it starts burning and you start feeling weak. You know, like you need more oxygen, so you need you need to start breathing deep.
That's your cue.
Yeah.
And you really should be doing it before, but if it takes you that long to realize, let at least that be your cue to start getting control of your breath.
Right.
And just for the future, you know, like I remember when I was a kid, I used to like treat little days like big days.
Right.
Like a little 2-inch wave that didn't scare me whatsoever, but I'd pretend like it was a 3-footer. And I'd paddle at it like with this fervency and this fire, like I gotta get through this, I gotta get through, because one day it is gonna be a 3-footer.
Do or die, do or die.
Just getting myself in that like training mode when it's really, it doesn't feel like I'm worried or getting caught inside is not panic situation.
Practice it, yeah.
Just training when you're really in control, and you can be, helps you to recreate that when you do start to panic, you do start to worry about getting caught inside.
One thing we have on our notes right here that I really like, and that I think as you get to a certain competency in your surfing, you're able to play with this line of being caught inside and being, you know, and getting a lot of those waves that sneak through everybody who's sitting on the outside waiting for the full-on set waves. There's so many waves that go unridden. We talk about this all the time. And if you're in there messing around and snagging those little insiders, you're gonna get caught.
Right, what a good motivation to like really get a hold of that, like strengthen your mentality about being on the inside, because that's where some of the best waves are. Right on that line of like where you don't feel safe and where you do feel safe. And sometimes even more inside of it.
Right.
You know, and man, I'll tell you what, I catch a lot of my best waves paddling back out while I'm still on the inside.
Yep.
You know, you get a burger on the outside or something and it takes you all the way through, but it's really not an exciting one.
Yeah.
But then on your way back out, if you're not panicking, you're not stressing, you have the mind to be able to be like, oh, look at this little grinder coming in on me.
This little double up,
I'm taking this thing, spin around. But if you're panicking and all worried about getting outside, that'll pass you right by. You won't even notice what a good wave it is.
Right.
And even where you set up, you know, that, like you were saying, that line of too far in, too far out.
And just, you know, like a lot of things in surfing, you gotta laugh at yourself. You know, you keep finding yourself on the inside. You're like, oh my gosh, friggin' 10th time today? What the hell is going on? There's something wrong going on. You gotta, you know, you gotta change your approach. If you find yourself inside all the time and you're not hunting the inside, then something's going wrong. You know, we always talk about making sure that you kick out and dismount as good as you can and hold onto your board so you can be right back on it and working your way back out.
It's all connected to not being caught on the inside.
Timing it, your timing has to be right. And that kick out and keeping your board with you is crucial for that. Not having that downtime where you're reeling your board in and flipping it over and turning it around and getting going from a dead stop.
Right.
Those are crucial little.
That's what we call the continuum. That's why we're calling what we teach the continuum, because it's supposed to be there's supposed to be continuity, one skill to the next, to the next, to the next, almost like a chess game. You're thinking one step or even two ahead of yourself.
Right.
Rather than stopping, pausing, and then restarting. It just takes more energy and it slows you down. It breaks the momentum. It breaks the continuum. And that's a great talk. I love these kind of free-flowing ones, where it's just like, this is something that so many people struggle with, mentally and really like panic about like when they're in that situation. And even before they're in it, they're thinking like, oh, I don't want to get caught inside.
Anxiety.
I thought about it for years when I was a grom, I remember my mom having to be like, well, listen, how big of waves can you deal with comfortably, And I'd be like, 3 foot. And I remember her saying like, well, what's another foot?
Yeah.
And like whatever it takes to like break down those mental walls, and start overcoming. And then of course there is a line that is too big, and if you are caught inside all the time, then you just got to turn around and take the next train home.
Right.
And that's part of, surfing and knowing your limits and what's an acceptable challenge and what's beyond you.
Yeah, and sometimes you can just turn around and get blasted in, and sometimes you can't. So I think that's where a lot of anxiety comes from too. When you're in the thick of it, sometimes there's no turning back. You got like, that's really your own, you're right in the impact zone. You can't just turn around and take one of those real deal slammers.
Like an impact,
Yeah, you just got to keep actually charging through it. You can't turn your back to something like that. Something that we were just kind of talking about it with dismounting your board and holding on to it. And, we're out here at a super popular break, and it's also pretty popular just to ditch your board.
It really is.
You find yourself on the inside, you got to take a decent whitewater that just broke, it's got some steam, and instead of doing the right thing and holding onto your board and squaring the thing up and blowing through it, you just simply like paddle right up to it. You can even be sideways. It doesn't matter how you approach it, because people are just sliding off their boards, and then how violent the board just gets like shot to the beach.
Right.
It's a really bad practice, and you really should not be depending on your leash that much in a session.
It's a backup, your leash, You really should view it as a backup and not a tool.
Right.
Something that you test and strain every little... Look at Ghost Rider. Talk about holding on to your board.
Right. Yeah, you never know when the leash is going to break. That's why you can't just ditch your board on the very outside. When there's 100 people to the inside of you, there's, the leash string breaks, the leash breaks, the cuff, comes undone. There's just so many things that can happen.
Right, there's so many links from the board and you that can break, and you're just testing every one every time you ditch it. And man, that's bad news. Of course, that law, if the worst that can happen will happen.
Right.
And it's gonna happen when you're on the outside, furthest from the beach, everyone's inside of you, and you're gonna feel awful about it.
And if you're looking out at the ocean and you're like, I'm terrified of one of those medium-sized waves landing on my head, and I know I can't hold on to the board through it, then it's not your day.
Oh, no way. That's the sign.
You have to be real. I think a lot more people these days are getting themselves out into the lineup. We just did one on soft tops. They allow you to get out into some pretty heavy water because of their paddling ability, and just, say at like a perfect point break, you could just scoot around the whole lineup and then find yourself in waves way over your head. So that was Mike Edwards when I started surfing without a leash, and I was pushing the boundaries for myself. And there were certain days where, you know, because he is a good surfer, and I just figured he could handle it, and he was just basing it off the inside with a big board. Do I think I can comfortably hold on to the board there? And if it wasn't, you know, if it was La Mission and it was detonating on the inside bar, he'd be just like, it's not my day. Or he'd stay way on the inside and just get those 100 little reformers.
Right,
and it
right,
just,
right.
I gave him so much more respect for doing that instead of being out there and ditching his board and you know, riding leashless and just having a standard.
Right. And like you're so much better of a surfer when you always stay within your limits or just only barely tickle them, you know, as opposed to constantly going past them and then being like a floundering fool in the water. You know, it can be the same person, but when they pass their limits, they look like an awful surfer. When they stay within their limits and respect them, they look great.
Right.
You know, it's like, it's part of being good at what you do, is knowing your level and knowing what you can do. But that's getting caught inside, you know, that's a great like coverage on that whole topic. I think that's it for me. What do you think?
Right on. I'm just gonna look over what we got. Yeah, we definitely hit almost all of our points, and it was a nice flow. It's a beautiful day. I'm stoked we did it. And we appreciate you guys tuning in for another episode of the KookCast.
Yeah, that's right. So if you're not figuring out how to keep yourself off the inside, at least, or keep your cool while you're in the inside, or you're not subscribed to the KookCast, you're kooking it. We will catch you next week.
Right on, you guys. Stay wet.
You.
You.